Okay, so the scene you just watched is from a film called Malal, and it's not probably the best scene in the film. It's not the greatest film, and I'm not saying it's the best actors, but I've chosen this scene purely because it had a lot of moving parts, and it would enable me to show you the process of breaking down the script and scheduling a shoot better. So because there were a lot of variables to planning the shoot. So before I start, I want to say that a film is an art as well as an industry. So today we'll look at the second part of it, which as an industry, how it needs to function. It needs to be efficient with money and man hours. So when you're on set and you have a better prepared, you're better prepared for shoot, you're going to reduce the amount of mistakes you make. And mistakes on set can amount to reshoot, which happens. It's a part of shooting that you end up having to reshoot certain scenes, but if you it shouldn't be for lack of prep. Reasons can be, maybe it's just not fitting in, maybe the scene could be better, the performances are not fitting in, the actors were raw, so you need to reshoot. But these are creative decisions. They're not decisions you want to take because you weren't planned properly for the first time you went into the shoot. So when you look at a scene, what does the scene need to have? It needs to have the beauty of literature, because that is obviously the craft of filmmaking, but it also has the mechanics of how the story is going to be told. So if you've been through the script, I've highlighted two parts of the two sections of it, and you must know that when you write a script, the words that you're writing mean different things to different people, to different departments. I've highlighted Shiva and friends. I've highlighted Astha, Nandu, Jagya, and Fukya are highlighted in red. These are the primary characters. Now, as for the actors, they know, okay, these are the scenes. They'll read through these scenes. They'll know if they have spoken dialogues. But they're also very important characters in the film. So, production needs to know who are the characters coming to the set that day, because that means, do I need to have specific hair, makeup, costume people for that shoot? How many vans will I need to arrange for that shoot? uh, if you see in yellow, we have various Chaul kids and Sonu. Now these are secondary characters in the film. When you have kids on set, they'll come with parents. So when we have, say, 10 kids, sometimes you end up having 30 people that we need to budget a holding area for, because just 30 people hanging around on set without aim is, I mean, no one goes to see film shooting, because it's not like you're not having a party, it's, you need to have a specific designated area for them. So all these things, these interpretations are important to different departments. uh, I've highlighted in purple liquor bottles, because that's liquor bottles, chakna, all that is something that's part of the script, right? These friends come in and they come into the adda to drink, and they're going to carry a few things with them. So Astha actually asks, Chakna to laye honge, and they say no. So okay, we say that they'll only come with liquor bottles, and so, but these are all part of props. So the props are very often given in this script. Now this scene falls in a place where Astha and Shiva, the two primary characters, have a lot of conflict between the two, and this terrace is basically the adda of these boys. So they play carom, they sleep there, and the backdrop is that they live in a chawl. So chawl is a place where everyone sleeps in one room. Basically, the entire family is in one room, and you're in each other's faces. So this became kind of a sanctuary for these characters. So their setup throughout the film we've seen has been different, and they come here and they suddenly realize that their entire sanctuary, or this, what is the only place they can call their own, which is the terrace, has suddenly been changed into a classroom. So that is something I wish was mentioned in the script, but but it wasn't something that the director chose to pay heed to. But if I was doing it differently, maybe I would have actually taken a moment for the characters to see that everything that they call their own has been shifted to one side. you know And that is a very deflating thought for these people when they enter and suddenly a place that they're so familiar with is suddenly changed. So of course this is a director's call on how the person treats that scene, but obviously there's no wrong way of doing it. It's just that a director would choose the way does something. uh, when I say Shiva's eyes turned red in the film, it's not so clear, but there is a time when your hair makeup, the makeup person would interpret this differently.
Okay.
Does that mean there's something called eye blood, which basically turns your eye red, and it's a sanitary thing that you can actually put in your eye? So the makeup person, it's a fair question. The makeup person would ask, "Do I have to carry eye blood for this scene?" Though of course we didn't use it because it's a little too dramatic for it, but it was in the script, so it's a relevant question. Then the last thing would be he drinks straight from the bottle. Now, when an actor is drinking, there are things that you need to question because you're not going to actually give him neat alcohol on set because after 3 takes he's going to fall down. Okay,
Okay.
so you need to question whether is the actor allergic to something. What was he prefer to drink? There's very often people who can't drink. They don't drink sugar, like so
Right.
you have to think of alternatives. So on our set, the actor was like, okay, I'll bring iced tea from home. So he had like iced tea without sugar, but on standby we will still have Coke and Fanta, which you can mix and it looks like whiskey or rum. So those are alternates you need to have on standby before you go into the shoot, so you're not giving your actor neat alcohol.
Right. Right.
The next part is you take that scene and you sort of break it down. This scene is the scene 38. I'm going to read the one liner for it. So these are called one liners. Shiva and friends find Astha taking tuition on the terrace. They disturb her class. Shiva and Astha confrontation. This is not the best one liner. I mean, ideally, you want to write something that everyone understands, but in this, if an actor is supposed to read this, Shiva and Astha confrontation doesn't mean anything. This is basically the part where Shiva starts having feelings for Astha. He's never had someone stand up to him, and this is the first time a girl from the chawl is standing up to him, and he feels that okay, this girl has something. She's a fire. She has some spunk. Uh, a mention of that in the one-liners is great. It's great to mention a beat an actor is having, but these one-liners are not necessary for actors. Actors don't deal with these, so you can choose to avoid them.
Okay.
But it's good to write important information. If you've seen scene 42, which is the next scene, Ganpati festival celebration. Now, as soon as I read that, suddenly you know the setup. Art departments knows, okay, I need a Ganpati. I need a lot of flowers. I need a lot of lights. The DOP knows, okay, I need to make it bright. Like Vijay asked Astha to take Aarti from Shiva. So you know there's going to be an Aarti Thali. So these are basically things that immediately jump at you when you read the one-liners. The point of the one-liners is to have, no one's going to carry a 120-page script around, but these one-liners will fit into maybe 3 or 4 pages, which immediately tell you where the script is.
Okay.
So I'll go through the different columns. So the first is the scene number. That's not an issue. We'll go ahead.
Okay.
So you can see, so once the script is locked, you don't go around changing scene numbers only because it causes more confusion. After a certain point, when the script starts going to all the departments, they start doing their own breakdowns, which is always based on scene number. So if you'll see here, 38 jumps to 42. This is useful because when I send a new one-liner later, people will know, okay, 41, 39, 40, 41 have been deleted from the script, and we're going to jump straight from this cut straight into the Ganpati festival. So they'll stop working on that. They'll start sourcing props. They'll stop looking at locations for the following one-liners. This film is set. The next column, the film is set. It has a flashback. The film is mostly set in a flashback. So you have past and you have present. As soon as you read past, again, departments know what they have to do. If in the past I am talking about a new chawl, like, of course, it's not true in this, but if I'm talking about a freshly painted building, They know when I go to the present, it's say 30 years from now, that building has to look dilapidated. So a lot of times scheduling will depend on these things. I cannot schedule a wide shot of a building in the past today, and then from the present tomorrow, and then from the past again day after, because our department's going to be like, are you mad? I'm not going to paint the building twice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something you need to take into account when you're scheduling. Day night, of course, is broken. You're shooting, you're chasing the sun in outdoor shoots. If you're in a studio, it's different, but in outdoors, you're chasing the sun always, or you're fighting the sun because you're shooting a long night shift and the sun's going to come up, and you have to like hustle and finish the shoot. Exterior interior is as per the script, not as per where you're shooting it. When I'm shooting a studio scene, it will always be interior, but that's not what I write. So if I was shooting the scene in inside a studio and the script notes at Chawl Terrace, it would still be exterior because the location is exterior. So the DOP knows that I'm shooting for exterior night, so I have to light as such. Because if I'm shooting inside a studio, if I was shooting a Chawl Terrace, day exterior, to match the amount of intensity the sun has, the DOP has to call a lot of lights, a lot of jennies, but he has to know what we're shooting, because without it, if I tell him, okay, we're shooting scene 38 tomorrow, he's going to open that and be okay, I need 4 generator vans for this scene, you know. And if I can't show up on set and be like, oh, this is a day scene, he's like, I don't have the lights for it, like I don't have anything for it. So you have to make sure that everyone is aware of these basic things. The next one is Chawl Terrace, which is your location. The entire script has various locations. It also helps you when you're going for recce planning to know what the locations are. This will give you a location list at the end. So you know that, okay, I have found a location for this, I need to look for a location for so-and-so thing. I've explained the one-liner itself. In the last page, the last column is your page number. Now, page numbers are page numbers in film are always calculated on 2 eighths or eighths. So in this situation, our scene is 3 pages and 2 eighths, 3 full pages and 2 eighths of a page, which is a really long scene. But it's a dialogue scene, so you have to know that 2 eighths as a quick dialogues, you're going to finish faster than if it is an action scene, for example, you know. If an action scene 3 to 8 page is huge, because not only are you waiting for all your action team to have the safety, but action scenes do take a little longer. So you have to schedule based on the content of the scene and also the length of the scene. I'll go moving next.
Yes.
After this, if you once we have the location list, we go into the recce's. We basically went around Bombay. We found a lot of chawls. The film is set in Bombay. So these were the chawl. This was the location we locked on. This is the location you see. And the director loved the roof. He was like, I love this roof. But if you see, this chawl has buildings that has massive sky rises around.
Right.
When we go back, if you go to the scene later on, you'll see that it's all blacked out. You could have chosen to replace it in VFX with a blue sky, but we kept it black, you know. We are trying to show a Bombay that is set in 98. So none of these buildings would have existed. Also, there just wasn't that much street light in 98 is what we're assuming. Like today in Bombay, so many buildings are lit up in the night. So very often in films, you see a very harsh blue light even in the city. And that always looks a little wrong to me, because what I associated with city light is always like a sodium yellow light, you know. So in this situation, we decided to darken the sky out and bring the attention solely to the terrace. Also, it gives you a sense of that sanctuary of theirs, that it's this isolated part of the chawl that is otherwise very vibrant and filled with people. So that was a creative decision, but this location the director loved. It wasn't the most shoot-friendly location, as I will explain later. But the director loved this location, so this is the location that gets locked. When the director is basically doing other things, very often ADs go for these location recce without the director. on films like Bajirao Mastani, we were shooting in Amer Fort. We were shooting in we were shooting the war sequence in a desert. So there were times when I would go with the production designer. I would go with various other people of the unit and make sure that okay, this is a good shooting location. Should I bring the unit here? In Jaipur, we found the location which was perfect, but it was on top of a mountain and there was no access to um get vanity vans up there. There was no access to cars. It took me 45 minutes to an hour to climb to that location, and it was just the most beautiful location. But it is not feasible for everyone. There are some directors who would shoot, like if you see the Aguirre, the Wrath of God by
Mm-hmm.
Werner Herzog, he shot that in a live location, and that is just the most ridiculous shoot that you can imagine. But not everyone attempts it, and not everyone wants to attempt it, because if you're working with some restrictions, you're working with certain actors, you're working. If you want a horse in the scene, you're not going to get a horse on that mountain. So you have to look at that. Sometimes you have to look at what the permissions are required. Sometimes you, like if you're shooting in a forest, we are shooting in land that belong to the forest department, so those are separate permissions. So those you need to know that okay, this permission will take a month. I need to put in the papers a month earlier. You can't plan this shoot 2 weeks before and be like, okay, I'm going to go shoot there, because that's not going to happen.
Hmm.
uh, we have to be aware of what the camera will see. And in this situation, we saw that okay, it's going to the camera. There's no way to avoid these skyscrapers, so VFX will have to step in. But it's not a terribly difficult job for the VFX, because obviously there is only background cleanups. So
Right.
that you have to look at the feasibility of shoot, as well as whether that location is giving you creatively also what you
Hmm.
want.
Hmm.
So in
Right.
this situation, the director loved this roof. He loved this blue paint on the entryway. He wasn't too happy with how dilapidated the flooring was, but those are things we can change. You can always paint it. The problem that we faced is on the left hand side, on the top picture. If you see, there is a door on the right of frame.
Okay.
That is a toilet. Now I'll come back to this later, because we didn't understand how big an issue that would be later. But I'm going to go forward and I'll come back to this later. Then this is something called movie magic scheduling. We use it a lot. If you look at the frame on the right, it will have all the information from the one-liners. It will have the scene number, interior, exterior, the set location, the synopsis of the scene. It also has the script day, which is important because it needs the continuity supervisor needs to inform everyone, all the other departments, because day 13 has other scenes within it.
Hmm.
It would have Shiva and Astha have had a confrontation that very morning. Now, you and the director will take a decision. Okay, Shiva is not from an affluent family. He's not going to change his clothes, so he's going to wear the same clothes. But someone from an affluent family might change their clothes. Shiva needs to have disheveled hair because he spent all day roaming around. He's been collecting money. So basically, the scene fits in where they've been collecting money for Chanda for Ganpati, and from the money they collected, they're going to buy alcohol.
Right.
You know, uh, you know that Shiva has spent all day collecting money. So does the makeup want to give him a slight tan? Is his hair is going to be disheveled? Maybe he's been sweating, so his friends also have dirt on their clothes. So all these things are important. So day 13, day 13 night. Okay, so day 14 will have a separate continuity, because okay, if the next scene is when them waking up, are they going to wake up in the same clothes? So you need to know, okay, day 14 is they've slept in the same clothes as day 13, but they're woken up, so it's going to be totally messed up clothes. I also write an estimated time. I've estimated 10 hours for this scene. This estimates come with some experience. You need to look at the variables
Hmm.
of what you're shooting with, whether your time is going to permit. If I'm going to write, this scene is going to take me 15 hours to shoot, it's very unrealistic to schedule it on one day. You know, so obviously you have to break it over 2 days. How shooting friendly is the location is going to affect that estimated time of shoot. How I shot near a railway station once, and locking that up was a nightmare because people are trying to get to work, getting from work, and every time, so we lock up the road, and we have to actually get security to hold people back because either people want to go to a train station, because stopping a person from going to a train in Bombay is it's you're playing you're risking your
Right.
life. Yeah. So that shoot we had 22 local security guys, just in volunteer clothes, so it made it look more official. We made sure that the lockups were safe, because it can happen where if you're shooting with a famous actor and you break lockup and you allow the people are going to crowd around the actor and becomes a safety hazard. But I need to know that okay, this is a tough location. Between every take I need to give at least 5 minutes for the security to lock up. I have to be aware of that. In this situation, we didn't have cars, so the next take is quicker. But if you have cars that are passing, so if I've gone in a wide and I saw a bright yellow car pass behind the actor, and then in a close up, I need a similar yellow car passing behind. I can't have it go the other way in a if the editor chooses to put a match cut, I have
Hmm.
to make sure that the car goes back to the first mark. And when I do action, it's moving at the same time. So in this situation, we didn't have thankfully cars, but there are situations where you have to make sure that the cars in the background are also uh, in position on their first mark before you call action. Whether your actors are trained, do they need more rehearsals? All these things you need to figure out. Sometimes when your actors are new and you're shooting in a very difficult location,
Mm-hmm.
either you schedule that location to the end a little later in the film, where your actors are a little more set, they know the character graphs, they know the character pitch, so they're able to latch onto it and do it with fewer takes, so you're saving time. But sometimes the director wants more takes, so that's something you have to give and take. You have to reason with the director here as well. And as an AD, you're always fighting egos, so sometimes the actors want to do one more, but you don't have time, so you have to figure out how to deal with that.
Okay.
uh, Sometimes, like, you have to know how many, again, in my breakdown on the right panel, if you'll see, it has a bunch of information. uh, it'll have, so in this particular scene I have brought the time of day, so it's 8 p.m. I write it, you can customize these all in the software, but I've written 8 p.m. because it means something to production, it means something to lighting.
Hmm.
8 p.m. means that if there is any shops in the background, if is some activity in the background, I need to show that activity, because 8 p.m. is dinner time. So if we look into some people's windows, we might actually see some people having dinner. If you look at the profile shot, we'll go back to the scene if you wish, but if you look at the profile shot, you'll see that the windows are shut, because by the time we got to this profile shot, I realized that we're going to go to that shot at around 2 or 3 in the morning, and everyone in the chawl is going to be up. I can't go into the house and say, "Can you switch on the light and stand?" because I need a background. So we took that decision a little earlier on, saying that okay, we'll do the wide shot and we'll keep only this window open. It will show little activity in the background, but we're not committing to anything. So all these basic things we need to take into account, because if you're shooting a scene over 10 hours, it is going to change. If I'm shooting an exterior road scene at 8 p.m., I'm going to have 50 other cars passing in the background. By 4 o'clock, there'll be no one, you know. So suddenly, one shot will have a very bustling city, and the next shot will have nothing.
Hmm.
On the top left, if you'll see the next frame, you'll see scene 38 highlighted. It has again the scene number, exterior night, Chawl Terrace. Worli Terrace was the location, the real location. So I know production, when they see the schedule, they know okay, Worli Terrace they're shooting on. So on the software, you'll see the next end of shooting day 2, Monday, Jan 7th, 2019, time 12 hours, page 3 and 3/8.
Right.
So it's giving you all the information production needs. So production knows, okay, on Jan 7th, I'm shooting at Worli Terrace. They need to take permissions for that. Um, we are also seeing on the right, if you see a bunch of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. All
Yes,
these
yes.
numbers are cast IDs. If you look in again on the characters on the right panel, you'll see Shiva 1, Astha 2, Nandu 3. Uh,
Okay, okay.
these are all cast IDs that are always given to actors because generally costumes are taken in patties, you know. So you'll have cast IDs written on those patties, and you know that okay, I have character number 11 coming today. I need to take this patty on, and I need to take this suitcase that has all these characters' clothes, just in case. It also helps you because sometimes you don't want an actor coming for shoot for 2 hours and then going back and then coming for 3 days in a row for 2 hours because you have tiny scenes in which you need a reaction shot over 3 days, you know. So you try and reduce the amount of people on set by just making sure that you are as efficient as you can be because an actor on set translates into money. It means that I can't have an actor for which a vanity van will come, a hair makeup person will come, a costume person will come. It's just that we have to serve them food. Now all these things just add money, you know, and then later on I am answerable to the producer who's going to be like, you can't invite. It's not a party that you invite everyone every day. Like be a little more reasonable with your scheduling. So you are answerable to the producer at the end. So you are trying to save time. You're trying to save. You're trying to be more efficient. You're trying to make sure that only the people who are required on set on that day are present. So this is something we use for scheduling. It's a great tool. It works for feature films. It's a little costly. It's called Movie Magic Scheduling, but I swear by it, so I need it for my work.
Okay.
So I'm going to go into short division. I'm not going to stress about how to go into short division only because that's a separate thing. Again, I'm not talking about the art of filmmaking. I'm talking about the industry behind it. So it's very important to. I make my short division like this, as you see on the right hand side. I'm gonna. The opening scene is shot one, is a wide shot to a medium shot. Tracking as the friends enter the terrace and they stop when they see Astha, and we'll do the entire dialogue until ha ha chakna bhi mangale. Because after this, we know okay, Shiva is going to step forward, and the director knows okay, I'm going to cut to a tighter shot, so I don't need to shoot beyond this. Very often, you would shoot this as a master, and you'll take everything. Uh, I always on the right hand side on the note, I always have the axis I'm shooting in because it is the best thing is to do is to shoot axis wise. So I know the camera is looking towards the entrance. If you see on the left pane, you'll see Shiva, which is S1, walking in, going to S2. It's not the neatest of things, but it is for me. It is something that definitely a flow plan helps me plan my shot, and I know the next shot. So if you see Astha and Shiva, if you see, there's a V which shows the camera angle, and 1 and 8 are the two uh, shots that I'll be taking. So when I'm set for shot one, as soon as the director calls cut and says, "Okay, great shot, let's move on," I know that okay, the director wants a separate wide shot master with the full activity with separate cuts. Again, looking towards the entrance. So he's marked out certain dialogues in certain chunks that he wants to take. So we'll change the length and with the same setup because on this location it's a very tiny location and we are trying to shift like. So one more issue I had with this location was because it's a 100-year-old building. I don't know how many people can be on the terrace before the building collapses, you know. So that was something that was always weighing on my mind. Um, so I made sure that there was always a minimum amount of crew on set. So it's not feasible for me to shoot the first shot from this axis and then the second to change the entire axis of the second shot. In this situation, I would shoot shot 1 and 8 first, then maybe shot 13 and 15. If you see on the rightmost, 13 and 15. So
Right.
with that, I'll go axis wise and make sure that my setup is not always because behind the camera, you have the director's monitor, you have all the props that are not in frame are just lying, you know, uselessly outside. So you have roughly 30 people who are standing behind camera doing their own work. So every axis change is like 45 minutes gone. I can't do that every time. Then scene shot number 15, if you take a look at, it's an insert of a calculator. Uh, in when you're planning your shot breakdown, I will go into this. Is that it? Sometimes the script tells you what the shot demands. You know, But in this situation, an insert of the calculator is not something you would have read or felt necessary. But Shiva is a guy who's great at maths, and no one has identified that about him before. Now, she's the first one to realize that. And when we see her type it into the calculator, it's just that much more of a realization, that holy shit, this guy is great at maths. And later on in the film, you see that's something she uses. Like, his ability to maths is something she uses to get him a job. So, this is the first realization for the audience as well, that he is not just a lukha, he has a skill set that no one's identified him. So the insert of the calculator is a prop that you could use to emphasize a point or a character trait. So it was a very important shot for the director, and we realized it obviously, that it's a great shot. No matter what we do, we have to take that shot. Sometimes when you're running behind on time, you have to negotiate with the director and say, okay, can I cut this shot because it's a repeat beat. I know it'll help you in editing, but we might sacrifice this more important shot later. In terms of the insert of the calculator, it's just an insert. I could have someone else paint their fingernails the same color as the actress and just shoot that close up of this thing of her typing it in. So if I'm racing time and I have a big actor, I'm not going to waste that time taking that shot if I have a close up left. So scheduling is also about making sure that you have everything to construct the scene. And if I lose out on a close-up because I was sitting here taking this calculator shot is criminal. It's happened to me before where the director took this really beautiful wide shot and he had set it up, but that day when we were taking that shot, the sun didn't come out. So the shot he had in mind didn't look as good, it didn't look as crisp. And we finished the shot, we moved on to the close-ups and the sun came out. And the director was like, I want to take that wide shot once more. Can we do that? So in that situation, I can tell him, okay, I'm going to try. We'll try and fit it in. Because ultimately, you're doing everything for the art of the film. But we're going to try. But if you can't, we have it in the can. We know we can construct the scene. But, you want to try and give him that shot because it's a beautiful shot and it's worth that effort, So it's always a compromise. You need to look at what is possible and what is not. Moving on to a call sheet. Now, call sheet is the way you would communicate with all departments on set. It's a little heavy to understand. I'm going to go through it because I could waste a day on this, but I'm going to go through it quickly. On the top, you have your crew call. Now it says 8:30 is the crew call, but everyone's coming at 8. So the top crew call is wrong because it's 8:30. So there are mistakes that I've left on purpose within this, just to make you realize that there are mistakes that would be interpreted differently, and if the AD doesn't make sure that these mistakes aren't there, the production can pull you up for it. So it says 8:30, but my actors, if you see below where it says Charmin Astha reported location 8 o'clock. So if my crew comes at 8:30, my actors are waiting on set at 8. That's really terrible, right? Like, that means the vanity vans are not ready, the costumes are not in the vanities, hair makeup is not ready for them, breakfast is not out, or dinner in this situation is not out. So you need to make sure that everything is ready before the actors come. So in this situation, my crew call is wrong. The shooting call on top is 9:30, but if you look 3 cells below, it says shoot call 9:45. So these kind of discrepancies you can't have. Later on, it says shoot call 8. So, okay, you feel that, okay, shoot call I've written twice, I have it shoot call 8, but that's a mistake. You can't have it repeated and you can't have it wrong. The call sheet basically has all the pertinent information about where people have to come, what time they have to come, what they have to bring, what we're going to shoot, who is going to be there. On the left, on the 5th or 6th column, you'll see all ESIS hospital behind Podar hospital. We also write the closest hospital. It's just as a safety measure. In case of a mishap, we know where everyone's headed. We know that, okay, at that time, you're not running around like chicken, you've figured out that hospital, you've called that hospital ahead of time and said that, okay, we are shooting here. we might need this thing. So, is there an emergency number we could call? What are the facilities you have on standby? Are you open at so and so time? It's not just some small clinic, but a 24-hour hospital. So, all these things are important, you know. The next page has all the individual timings. There would be timings. If you see, I don't know how to bring it up, but on the left hand side, you'll see production, camera, choreographer, sound, action, grip,
Right.
and vanity. So if my crew call is 8 o'clock, my vanity vans need to be up and running at 7:30. They need to get cleaned, costume needs to set up inside. The generator costume needs power to iron the clothes, catering needs power to get the food ready. So the Jennies need to be on earlier, production needs to come in earlier. You know, all these are important. Uh, we also have props, set dressing, production. Each of these has the important aspects of the crew. So production will have permission for terrace lighting and the super crane. These are all lighting requirements. We, as I mentioned earlier, we had Coke and Fanta for the actor on standby. We also had iced tea from our end on standby in case the actor forgot to bring his own. Because on that day, he's focused on the scene. You can't, we had Chakna. We got it just in case the director wants to remove that line and he wants to keep it. So it's a small expenditure, and we just felt more comfortable doing it. I'm going to go back to the first page. Now, if you notice, there is a big discrepancy here, which is a little hard to find. So if you see the second scene we are going to shoot, so we are shooting 9 to 9 in the morning, and we can't continue shooting after. If you see sunrise sunset time on the top right, it says 7:14 a.m. So you know that it's a 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock shift, and you're going to waste time because once the sun rises, you can't shoot a night scene. We're on the terrace. So I squeezed in another scene, okay, that we could do the next day, which was a shorter scene. It had more or less the same characters. So if you look at the scene schedule description, you see estimated time for that scene is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So I want to finish that scene at 5 a.m. The actors know, okay, Astha is not in the next scene, so actors are going to get packed up. Astha and Sonu are going to get packed up at 5 a.m. Now, why am I writing 5 a.m. when the sunrise is 7:15? That's wrong. I should write 7, because if that scene gets extended, I'm going to go till at least 7. So but an actor shouldn't say, you wrote my scene till 5 o'clock, so I'm going home. That's something that can happen. So it's something you need to watch out for. On the next page, that red bar has shifted a bit, but it says animals 12 pigeons at 7 a.m. Now that's another mistake. That why am I saying 7 a.m. If my sunrise time is 7:15, which that is correct. So I need, for the next scene, I needed pigeons and sunrises is 7:15, but I've written 5 a.m. for that scene. So in a situation where the director says, okay, let's shift this scene to night, and we finish the scene early, there are times when you have other things you can finish shooting, just a quiet scene of someone sitting on the terrace or friends chilling. In case that is part of the script, you can do it. But a call sheet is extremely important. It basically allows you to communicate with every department. It is something that the AD is liable for, and any mistakes that would cause the production because the call sheet went out wrong is on the AD. So that is something we definitely take very seriously. The call sheet basically protects your rear side, your backside, basically, because if the call sheet is wrong in your written things that cause a delay in the shoot, the producer is going to pull you up for it. It's going to cost him money, and it's something that you need to take very seriously. The production design. So after the location, we looked at the location. I'm going to just briefly go through this. We did take certain steps. Obviously, you can see the below image and the above image, and you can see that we've added the stained glass on the entryway. On top, we've painted the flooring. The flooring is not as dirty as it was. One very big thing on the right, if you see, I had spoken about the toilets, and you see that woman going into the toilet. On the image above, you don't see it. You see a blank wall that has some pipes. So that's something we constructed. We constructed this wall that jutted in like 2.5 feet in, and it allowed access from the backside for people to still use the loo, because this is a chawl and they all had common loos, and the amount of people using the loo is a lot. You can't stop people at 7 o'clock. You can't be shooting and tell people that okay, no, you can't use the loo because we are shooting here. When they had to use, we had to let them go because that was a prerequisite of the location. Uh, we covered it great. It looks like a water tank. It has this thing, but when we have this camera set and we allow someone to go to the loo, it used to stink, and it was a nightmare shooting there because basically the entire chawl is coming to use their restroom there while we are shooting. So it was a nightmare, this shoot,
Right,
because
right,
that place would just smell because roughly 100 people using 3 bathrooms really got out of hand after that.
right, right.
Uh, so this is the reality versus the shot. Uh, this is, I mean, after all the changes, this is what it looked like.
Hmm.
Again, you'll see the blue light that's coming from above is the moonlight, but I'll talk about it later where that's coming from. And yeah, so these are all the steps we took to make it look like a set.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to go into some anecdotes basically about there were time, no matter how much you prep, you have to be ready for getting into trouble because things happen. And like you're shooting on a live location, there's just too many variables. So I'm going to go through some anecdotes of films I've worked on and things that get wrong.
Sure, sure.
This set, we are shooting 4 stories high, which is very difficult for lighting team. But you can see those champion lightmen standing on this rostrum 4 stories high, and it was really scary because though they're required to wear harnesses, it really affects the speed of work. So they choose not to do it, though we insist on it. But here they are, like covering the sun because it was continuity in the middle of a scene, and those guys are real troopers. You see this woman with a lota because I would be ready for the shot and I would say, okay, roll sound, roll camera, and someone with a lota would just walk past camera because they're using it. And that is the reality of shooting in a live location. You can't help it. There are going to be delays. You have to smile and move on. Okay. Um, there were 100 people who wanted to watch the shooting. At the bottom right, you'll see that every time I would come, they would walk into frame and look straight into camera, and I would wave at them to get out. I would be like, move, move, move. They would just wave back, and I would just be like, okay, guys, cut. We're gonna have to do it again. Send someone to lock up. But it's difficult because basically you're going into their houses and tell, don't stand in your own house. Or, okay, if this light was off in continuity, can you switch off the light? And they're in the middle of dinner, and they would just be like, really, like you won't like we're eating dinner. So there are issues that you're going to face. You have to figure it out. You have to keep fighting.
Sure, sure.
This was a still from Bajira Mastani where we had horses, and then Sanjay sir was like, "Okay, I want these horses aligned." And we're like, "What do you mean? They are in a line." He's like, "No, no, no. I want them perfectly in a line." And we had to literally hold two men held ropes on the side, on two edges to hold the straight line, and we pushed horses into place.
Mm-hmm.
This was the toughest shoot. After around an hour and a half of simply aligning horses, one horse tried to, this one stallion tried to mount this mare, and she kicked him, and 100 horses scattered. And we were sitting there in the heat, in the desert, holding our heads because obviously the horses are the worst actors. So I mean, you can't account for these, but we are shooting this again. We are shooting this day for night because to light up the space was impossible. So if you notice, we have replaced the sky in VFX, but it's the very harsh shadows you see from the horses are all because we've shortened the day and we've just tinted it to make it look like night. So of course, this day for night is very common, and you can feel it, but there's no choice to it. But yeah, this was a very tough shoot because we were shooting a war, and it was just a nightmare. Pinga was a shot, like each and every one of those diyas is real. Uh, like VFX was like, okay, it's okay if a few diyas are extinguished, we can try and do that. But the director would have none of it. He's like, I want everything to be real. So we are sitting there and lighting diyas. Everyone from every department literally is lighting diyas because they're going out. One wind would blow and diyas would go out, and the entire unit is scrambling to a point where sound, grips, lighting, everyone, we are asking everyone for help just in lighting diyas. And at 2 in the morning, the EP's like, guys, we're running out of oil. I'm like, how? We need more oil because it's 2 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, we're going to run out of oil. And we had used around 90 liters of petrol and 90 liters of oil in just lighting those diyas and keeping them lit.
Okay.
And production had to figure out a way at 2 o'clock in the morning to get us more oil and get us more petrol. But because our production, God, thank God, they're so strong and they had it planned out, they were able to source it in the middle of the night, and we were able to shoot because with roughly 80 dancers and 2 lead actors waiting for the shot, you can't say, sir, oil khatam ho gaya, because that is criminal. So we managed, and the song turned out beautiful, but you can see the effort behind each and every frame. Ferrari Ki Sawari was a film. Sharman Joshi is very nervous because he's going to drive this Ferrari. Uh, it's hyped up because it was actually Sachin's Ferrari, and everyone's nervous, and the car is on, and suddenly the car dies, and everyone is fat out. We're like, what is happening? What are we going to do? And the EP comes running, and what had happened was Ferraris are not meant to be sitting with the engine on in a garage for too long. So the car got overheated, and it just shut down basically. So entire unit for half an hour is trying to cool the car. So we had opened the dicky of the Ferrari, and we were literally holding pedestal fans into the engine to cool it down. So no matter how many crores your prop is worth, your jugaad is still going to be a few hundred rupees wala. But yeah, this was against these things. No matter how much you plan, these things are going to happen on set. Aina Mahal was in Bajirao Mastani one of the most gorgeous sets I have ever been. Uh, each and everything is real. If you see all the large mirrors on the lower image, you see these two oval mirrors, and within those, Deepika is reflected. These mirrors were actually on a gimbal, and when the camera was placed for each shot, I would go around and like a guy with a long bamboo would come, and I would ask him to touch it. Okay, a little tilt up, a little tilt left, to make sure that she was in each frame reflected every time. It took time, but the director is so precise that he wants it, that he would be like, okay, you take your time because I want it that way. And that kind of attention to detail and that kind of commitment to the craft shows. But one funny thing that happened was that for this scene, for this entire set, usually the people behind camera don't need to worry about what they're wearing, but on this set we couldn't wear bright clothes because they were reflected everywhere. So at one point there was a piece of red reflected, and we couldn't figure out where that red is reflected from. And the entire AD team is running around trying to figure out where is this red coming from, who is wearing red, and no one we could see was wearing red. It turned out that one of the junior artists who's sitting on the top balcony had a red bag on her lap, which was reflected. But we wasted 20 minutes just because we couldn't. It's a glass palace. We couldn't figure out where it's reflected from. So sometimes you waste time on things that are unnecessary, but a person who's dedicated to the craft will allow for that time. Ghumar in Padmavat is completely short. We are ready, and the censor board comes and tells us that we have to cover the belly, and we're just like, we can't reshoot this. Matlab, it is so in this situation, a reshoot was just unfeasible. Thankfully, VFX came to our rescue, and they were able to cover it up literally in one day. Those guys were amazing to work with, and they saved the song. I don't know if you know this, but the first time Ghumar released, it did have the video had her stomach showing, and then later on the video was replaced by T series and with the covered stomach. But no matter how, I mean, I don't understand the logic of it, but this was a requisite of the censor board, and we had to abide by it, and it had to be done within a day. The VFX studio got it done, and it was amazing. Uh, so the last thing was we were supposed to shoot this tiger for this scene in Baji Rao Mastani, and we had to go to Thailand to shoot it. So we I sent my entire, I had planned everything out. Okay, I need a green screen, I need a mirror for this, I need this. Everything was sent, and at the last minute, the producer was like, "Okay, we have an opening now. They're free." We did a lot of research that we could shoot tigers in Thailand or we could shoot them in LA. It just worked out in Thailand because it was uh, cheaper. And we went to Thailand, and none of the requirements we had given were ready. They just had a camera and they had a tiger. And I was like, I need my green screen, I need a VFX mixer. And the like Sanjay sir didn't come for this shoot. It was just me. It was the VFX supervisor, and it was the second unit cameraman who would be lighting and setting up the shot. So they were like, the production there was like, yeah, we're getting it. And the production got the equipment. By the time we had set up the green screen, it was afternoon, and the tiger went to sleep. And so I was telling the wrangler, get the tiger, we need to shoot. He's like, I'm not waking up a sleeping tiger. If you want to pick him up, you wake him up. So I had to call the producer and be like, the tiger's gone to sleep. You're not going to be able to shoot. And obviously the producer, I mean, what kind of an argument? He got pissed, but what can he do? What can I do? I'm not going to wake up a sleeping tiger. I'm not insured for it. So yeah, so this was something, again, we lost an entire day of shooting. But when you're shooting with animals, when you're shooting with children, everything's up in the air. You plan the best you can, but you never know, you know. And finally, I'll say that coming back to film being an art and an industry, you need to be better prepped, because when you are as prepped as you can be, you can actually give your entire energy and your resources into the art, into making it better. There are going to be delays, but there is always creative ways around it. Some situations there aren't, but you account for those. So yeah, that's it. That's my experience there.
Thank you so much, Rohan. It was wonderful. I think you shared so many insights which will help everyone, and even like people from animation can see like how a shot is really important to finish on time, because a shot is basically money, right? So I will ask other people like who are like attendees to basically type in their question, so we can have a Q&A session for like around 20 minutes, and maybe a little more, but let's just put in some questions. And I'm sorry, like I'm not the very right person to ask you questions, so I will ask like people like who are like someone like Dhruv, like he mentioned, like he's an AD right now.
Yeah, yeah,
So these people, if they can ask like good questions to you, it will be very much helpful.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting around. Like you mentioned about filmmaking as business, from business perspective, and I was just recently going through an interview of Rahul Bose, and he was mentioning like, firstly, a film is business. It's the art comes second. I don't know. Like I just wanted to know what's your perspective into it, because when I see that scene from the song, I see more of art, business managing the art. That's what I saw.
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. Even art itself is a business. It depends on what you're able to sell. If you're able to give some gravitas to your art, I think it becomes a better business and a more meaningful business. Yes, films are a business, but they're nothing without the audience. And if you disagree with a film or what a film represents, doesn't mean it's bad art. It just might not be for you.
Right. So we have some
Uh,
questions now. You were saying so. Sorry, I just interrupted. You were saying something. So I will
yeah,
read
no,
out. I will read it out for you,
yeah.
so it will be a little easy. So Bhavya Srivastav, he asked, uh, like they asked, like the construction you did there is amazing. Appreciate your work. Can you suggest some books of unique camera angles?
Uh, Camera angle. I mean, I don't know how I would. There's a really good website called Shot Deck. Uh, Take a look at it. It's in a beta stage right now, but it has very good still images from lots of films that have been curated,
Okay.
and it's a great resource which I would encourage you to look at because it has tags for searching for kind of this thing. So I think just Bhavya, I wouldn't say that you should read books about how to set up camera angle. I think immerse yourself in art, immerse yourself in good paintings, good films, like good photography, and you'll be able to create those camera angles. You'll understand composition, you'll understand framing devices, you'll understand lensing. From that, it.
Right.
I think there's no end to it. You can't read one book and say, okay, I've got it. I don't know any particular books on that.
Okay. So now Dhruv asks, he says like, do high budget shoots and lower budget shoots have different sets of problem? If yes, can you elaborate?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question, Dhruva. Basically, when I was a student, I'll give you an example. When I was a student, I was shooting in New York, and my producer, in her budget, so I did a short film in the US that was crowdfunded, thankfully, and I was fortunate to get a lot of money from crowdfunding to make a film bigger and better than what I'd wanted. But when I was sitting with my producer, she had allotted $300 for one night of shoot in one particular location, and it was a road shoot. And I was like, $300 for a permit. Uh, so she was like, "Yeah, I mean that's the permission." I'm like, "How much would we be charged if you were caught shooting?" So she's like, "If you were a smaller short film, like if we scaled down the budget and we had a fewer people, maybe we would get away. We could talk him down to $100 ticket or a $150 ticket. So in my thought out, I was like, okay, we'll have to get caught twice to break even. So I did that shoot without permission. But that's only possible because I was a lower budget film. I wasn't dealing with big actors. I didn't have 100 people on set. I didn't have vanity vans, which I had to keep a separate area allotted for. As a low budget shoot, you have more freedom to move, but you have to compromise in certain places. I'm not going to get like a Jimmy Jib on top of a massive building because I want it, because I'm a low budget film, but a big budget film could do it. So they both have pros and cons. Uh, but sometimes I've shot a big budget film, guerrilla style, and it had the same issues as a low budget film. We basically shot the same film I was shooting in Ganga. I shot the lead actor walking through the ghats. Uh, so in that situation, we didn't have walkie talkies. We all pretended like we were on our phones and we are talking to one another. We had literally six people. His hair and makeup people, the director, me, the DOP, and three production people, and we would just stand a little out of frame and divert people out of the way, so the actor can do his stuff. And there was no clap, there was nothing on that set. So it was a big budget with a big actor, but the actor in that situation was willing to do it. So it worked out. So they do have their own pros and cons.
Okay, so now Tane asked like, what is your take on movies releasing on OTT platforms? Do you think it will reduce the cinematic and sound experience a theater gives?
Not really. I think OTT is a boom. Honestly, personally, yeah, cinema does have its own merits. Watching it on the big screen, like Tarantino or Nolan, when you see their films, you want to see it on the big screen. Um but having said that, if you think of Game of Thrones, was something that up till Game of Thrones release was something people would say, oh, it's meant only for the big screen because look at the scale, look at the shots, look at the production design. But no one complained when it came out on HBO. It came out on TV, and it created something that was amazing, and it created a new genre, and it reignited a passion for TV, which everyone thought was dying. So I won't say OTT is lesser in any way from film. It's just a different experience. Um, Sometimes it's interesting because if you watch sometimes a Tarantino film in a theater, there'll be laughs at a really odd time. You know, people laugh in really cynical ways, which is just interesting because it's not something you might laugh at, but someone else laughs at, and you feel that, oh, that's something I missed and I wouldn't have caught on to. So collective viewing experience is different from a OTT viewing experience, but I wouldn't say it's lesser or more. It's just different.
Yeah, so Dhruv again, he says it was fascinating the whole talk and overall. He asked like how is the corruption in Hindi film industry? For example, the censor board in Telugu industry does not even view films without a bribe.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I don't know where you've heard that. I've not heard
Okay,
it.
okay. So we don't have much questions now,
Yeah.
but if you have something like you would like to say to like new upcoming animators or filmmakers, what would be it? Like I don't have any question as such. Like I was not
Right.
really prepared for it.
That's fine. Yeah. I see Bhavya has asked another question. Can a
Okay.
VFX artist achieve director's vision? Yeah, definitely. So the person who I was working with on Bajirao Masani, his name is Prasad Sutar. He's a VFX supervisor and he's a very dear friend. He's spent so much time visualizing beautiful frames that I think very often his visual sense is stronger than some directors who aren't that don't have that affinity towards visuals as much. You know, he's worked with directors who are known for great visual sense. And having said that, there are many ways to being a director. There are some, like if you look at Raju Hirani films, they are visually very mediocre. I mean, they're flatly lit, their framing is not this thing, but the dialogues, the rhythm of it, the editing pattern gives it a sense of movement and a sense of familiarity. You know that doesn't need it, great visuals. So when you watch one of his films, like Three Idiots, I didn't feel a lack of visuals mastery. But if you watch a Bansali film, he does have that because he invests that time. That's a passion of his. So different directors have different methods of how they became directors, but it's not again to say that one is lesser, one is more. It's just what you connect with.
Right. So again, coming to this, I have a question. Dhruv has a question first, so let's ask his question. So have union rules impacted any of your shoots in a negative way?
Union rules, yeah, but I mean, I feel they've always been for the better because, when you're crunched for time, like as a AD, it's something I often forget because I know that, okay, I'm crunched for time. I have to finish this scene. I am ready to shoot 24 hours, you know. But I showed you those light men, standing on that rostrum. I have to be aware that I'm standing on 2 feet on firm ground and I'm getting a spot boy because the spot boy is going to give me water whenever I want it, going to give me a banana if I want it, I need some energy. He's going to be aware of me personally looking exhausted because he knows I'm shouting all day on set, I'm giving energy, but I'm better taken care of. But do I really want that light man who's been working 24 hours climbing onto a tarafa, which is 50 feet in the air? Is it safe for him? So in a situation, unions are good because they help you remind you to be a little more compassionate and a little caring towards the other people on the film who are giving it their all. So I would say that they do impact your film, but not necessarily in a negative way. It just gives you something to be mindful of.
Okay, awesome. So we have another question. Yash asked, could you name the VFX studio you had worked with?
It's called NYVFX Wala.
Okay, okay, okay.
You can check it out. They're the same ones who did Padmavati and Bajirao Mastani. They're a big studio, and I've worked with them before. They're really good, but there are other good ones as well. There's Prime Focus. There are several others that
Because a
film
lot of
work.
people from animation might be interested in
Yeah.
knowing about VFX studios. So it's a good question as well. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something about directors and their different styles. I often like find few director who even illustrate. So do you think like how much is it important like if a director knows something about like storyboarding, like they are really into like detailed storyboards?
To each his own. Storyboarding does help, definitely. But a lot of directors will get it done. I mean, they personally don't do it. They just tell them the shots they want.
Hmm.
Sometimes directors even take screenshots from other photographs or films and create their own storyboard.
Right.
The point of storyboard is not the beauty the uh, of how well you can draw. It is simply getting your point across to the 50 other departments that are involved in what your creative vision is. So, without drawing, if you can get everyone on the same boat, I would say more power to you. You can do that without
Right,
the need
right,
for story.
right. My question
So,
was anyway. Yeah. So
yeah,
anyway, I stopped you. Sorry.
no, no. Did I?
So my
I missed
question, yeah,
the question?
yeah. My question was in perspective of like I basically saw Anderson's a video like a storyboard for the like his last movie. So
Hmm.
I was just asking from that perspective because he really was like it was almost like a professional storyboard I could see there. So and I
Yeah.
could see matching it to this basically the film. So
Wes
does it
Anderson, you have to know that he's a great animation director as well.
right?
Like Isle of Dogs, Fantastic Mr. Fox. So it's either he had it from before, or it's possible to say that his directing style evolved from having done so many animation films. You know,
Right.
uh, but having said that, I've worked with Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who doesn't storyboard anything,
Okay.
like except for action sequences, because he knows it in his head, but he's able to get everyone aligned. It's so if you're able, the director's job is to bring the vision to the table, and if he's able to align everyone's creative eye to that frame, whether you need a storyboard or not is just basically about where you stand. Don't If you don't feel the need for it, you don't need a storyboard. It's a personal choice.
Okay. I'm asking like if like anyone else have other question or if you have something else to mention to like people. Oh, I think there are more questions.
Yeah.
I still basically didn't scroll down. So yeah, Mohit asks. So Mohit is asked, how do you get about getting presenting your script to a producer or other relevant people?
Process, and is there a shortcut like one can go through? Let's say Rohan Regal. You could say Rohan Regal likes the script, but no one is going to give you any bhav for it because, like, if I liked it and if I had the money, I would love to produce a film. But the truth is, a good script can get picked up. I know people who have just sent in cold scripts into studios and they've been picked up. I know people who have great scripts and have been trying, but they haven't been picked up. I know people who send their scripts to uh, film contests like screenwriting contests or labs. They have screenwriting labs where you can actually work on them, and they've been picked up from there. The US has a blacklist, which is basically a list of scripts that are circulating, but I don't or I'm not aware of anything in India as such. Uh, but again, yeah, I mean, cold calling is often the best way. Yeah.
So Nishit has a question. He asked like,
Yeah.
what drove you to live action after doing animation design?
Okay, so after I finished animation, I was working at Studio Ixoris, which is now in Santa Cruz. But that time it was in Famous Studios, and I realized that okay, it used to start at 11 and used to end at like 9 or 10. I would be there every day at 8 o'clock, and I would leave at 2 in the morning, and I was still not the best person. And I realized that maybe I was spending a lot of time getting better at drawing and getting better at the skill level of it. Whereas my strengths lied in collaboration. So when I came into live action, suddenly felt like a more comfortable medium because I preferred a collaborative process over like a designated work process. And I was spending a lot more energy on the creative art aspect of it rather than purely finding my skill. Uh, I love animation. My other short film from Kabaddi, I have extensively used animation because I think as a medium, it is fantastic. Uh, but I can use it in parts, but I don't think I want to make a career out of it. It's not my kind of storytelling, though I love the freedom it gives.
Apurva asked question. So she asked, Hi Rohan, amazing presentation. My question is, how do you keep yourself original while shooting any song or a particular scene, and you are not distracted with the fact that you have done or used similar technique?
Um, the thing is, us, again, how I spoke about earlier, right? When you this scene I presented today could have been shot a different 100 different ways. Bajirao as a character, Sanjay Leela Bhansali chose to make him a lover. But if someone else was to make the film, maybe he would have been a warrior before he was a lover.
Right.
There are ways of interpreting the same thing in different ways, and it the only thing that will change is how you want to tell the story and how you interpret that thing. So no matter what, even if you're doing uh, reshooting the same things, you might interpret that character differently. Uh, and that's what brings a little freshness to the scene. That's what could allow you to be original in a way. There are, it's been said before that there are no new ideas, and literally if you there are several books that talk about there are only some 8 plot points, like there's a revenge plot, there is a family plot, but there are thousands of films being crafted every day. They are all crafted because the artist behind them is different.
Okay. There's another question from Malvika. For a person starting out in script writing, what are your suggestions in terms of creating environments and stories that are real and thorough and well researched, especially in the time when we are not physically mobile?
uh, I think you have to understand the rules of that world. So it's something I'm sure in animation you get an example of all the time, where you see okay, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, right? You've established rules that after Wile E. Coyote walks off the ledge, there's going to be a delay in gravity, and he's going to get hurt, but he's never going to die. So those are the rules established, and they always stick to the rules. If I'm making a film in which my character lives in a chawl, uh, don't make him understand nuances of pop culture a person from a chawl won't understand. You might, and you as a script writer might write because you find them funny, but will that character in a chawl actually understand them? Would he understand spending 1,000 rupees in a club or 2,000 rupees in a club? It's something you can relate with, but your character might not. So being aware of the rules of that world and the constraints of your characters within that world are important. Whether you do that through watching other films, whether you do that through reading, you read books, you read articles, you have to understand what those rules allow you to do and what those rules don't allow you to do. That's it.
Awesome, awesome. I again ask like if anyone has like few questions they can ask in. Um, we are like you were supposed to end up like at 5. We are
Yeah.
40 minutes ahead, but that's okay because I think it'll be great to have like few more questions because yeah, there might be. So I'm asking like if everyone. Malvika says thanks.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
I hope I answered it properly.
yeah. So, or anything like if Reggae, you have like anything to mention to anyone, or put some links in, put some mention of books you would like to like people should read
Um,
about.
I mean, yeah, I would say that to further your art, don't be a Philistine towards any particular art form. Uh, I'll tell you something that not too many people know, but Bhansali was a dancer as well as a musician before he became a director. And you can see that in the way he choreographs his films. That there's someone who does his songs, like he can do songs unlike anyone else in the industry. But to say that any art form is not wasted is true. Um, you can learn music, you can learn, you can read books, you can look at paintings, you can paint. It will always support another art form you do. So if you're a filmmaker, doesn't mean you can't be a painter. If you're a animation student, you're an animator, doesn't mean you can't be a musician at the same time. So uh, I think absorb more art, look at more what other people are doing, get inspired by it, and then interpret it in your own way and create something that you want and you want to speak about.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Rohan. I think it sums up everything. I think I was